Good morning, Don. Joe Gorcho, WIS TV in Columbia. Being that this is a new team this year and just a new collective of personalities that have never been to this point before, how do you think they're embracing each round as you progress and the different expectations and pressures that come with advancing in a tournament like this?
Well, this is a group that just has been focused all season long. It doesn't mean they play perfect basketball, but I mean the focus has been there. I see being in the hotel and the bubble and being around them. There is an extra focus on details. There's an extra focus on each other. There's an extra focus on just making sure they are prepared. And it's a great thing to see, and it's not anything that's outside of what they've already done. So this team has been lock in step with the way they've done things all season long. But you can see an extra layer of wanting to stick around this tournament for a long time.
All right. Well, next, Greg Hadley. Greg, you can unmute yourself. Oh, sorry about that. Greg, go ahead.
Hey, Don. I was just curious because I remember you talking early in the season about developing this team's defensive identity. I guess when do you think that kind of clicked for you guys and you became this really gritty defensive team that can shut opponents down?
I mean, it's been a process over the entire season. This team was really motivated by what they're able to do offensively, and it camouflaged our lack of grittiness on the defensive end. Probably when we start losing basketball games is when we've amped it up because we knew they would hear us a little bit better and a little bit more, a little bit depth to listening and doing things that we needed to get done for just the big picture. So loss after loss after loss, we got better and better on the defensive end, and this team really doesn't like losing. They haven't lost a whole lot in their college careers, so they don't like that feeling. So they're doing everything that they need to do, especially defensively, to help us move forward and to help us just compete at a really high level.
All right, we'll next go to David Collinger with Post and Courier. David, you can unmute yourself.
Hey, Dawn, thanks for doing this today. You and Nell have obviously known each other for a long time, and it might have started with that 2000 Summer Olympic team. What are some stories or the top memories you remember from that summer playing under Coach Fortner?
Well, I actually knew Nell she was an assistant coach for our national team the year prior to us playing in the 96 Olympics. And then she ended up getting the head coaching position for the 2000 Olympic Games. And what I remember is, Nell's pretty positive. She's a pretty positive coach. She has a way of just, always being positive, no matter how frustrated she gets, no matter how many times she's had to, when she's frustrated, she'll just, take her hand through her hair. We knew that's the most frustrated outburst that she'd have, but as far as verbally, she's always been one that always saw a positive that in any and every situation. I don't know if she's still the same way, but it worked for us in 2000. I'm sure that's her nature.
All right, we'll next go to Matt Dow. Matt, you can unmute yourself.
Hey, Coach, Matt Dowell, Watch Fox in Columbia. I know a lot of people on social media have had this question, me included, about the neutral courts the first weekend because there were a lot of upsets, a lot of really close games. I'm just wondering, do you think the neutral courts in that first weekend maybe gave lower seeds a lot more belief and maybe even the playing field without that home court advantage? Just curious about your thoughts on that.
I do think being in a neutral site gives, the lower seed or anybody who isn't playing on their home court, the lower seed, the advantage. Am I in favor of it? Nope. I'm not in favor of it because, for the longest, everybody from our conference spring meetings to everything that the NCAA stands for, which is to get people in the stands. And we've done that at an incredible level, and we afforded ourselves to be a top 16 team over the past couple of years. And that's what you work for. It gives an extra incentive during the season to pack the house, to create a huge incentive for the first and second round. So it's probably coming from coaches who don't draw a big crowd, but we draw a big crowd. We're number one in attendance for the past, how many years? 6? Did you add this one? This one would be 7. 7? So, let's have some incentives. Let's go to regionals after that and let's be fine with that. But, let's not take our game backwards, because is at a place where I do think people are working on their campuses to get people in the stands. So let's continue that trend.
All right, we'll next go to Jim Furtono with AP. Jim, can you unmute yourself?
Hi, good morning. This is Jim Vertuno with the AP. I want to return to Nell real quick, and this is kind of a double barrel question. I know you have a lot of highlights in your own career, but when you win a gold medal with someone like that, does that create any kind of a lifetime bond between player and coach? And how would you describe maybe your relationship with her today? And part 2 of that is that between the two of you, you both spoke out pretty strongly regarding the NCAA. And what do you think the two of you share in terms of standing up for women's basketball and athletics in general?
Nell and I are, forever. We forever have a bond because we share in the year prior to us playing in the '96 Olympic Games in Atlanta. We shared an entire 15 months just together. We had some domestic games, we had some international travels, and that team was pretty close. And we created that friendship through that. And then playing for her in 2000, you're always going to have a strong connection when the goal is as big as it was, is to win a gold medal. Today, when I see Nell, I always talk to her. If I see her do well, I send her a text message. And obviously, I read her statement a few days ago about just how special women's basketball is. We share in being stewards of the game and being ones that will want not just for this generation of players, but for the next generation of players and coaches that, so passionately love our game. I know that change is on the horizon because players are speaking out, coaches are speaking out, and, we must band together to make sure that we're taking care of the game that we love. And, maybe I'm hoping in my coaching career things will change, but if not, we'll keep fighting for the next generation of coaches and players and administrators and committee members and all of those good people that are want our game on equal footing.
All right, we'll next go to Michelle Vopel with ESPN.com.
Yeah, Coach Staley, how do you sort of, I don't want to say maybe convince isn't the right word, but when you have kids who have to play that glue type role, maybe it's the blue collar role, somebody like a Bree Beal, they're so critical to a team, but that's not always like the role that gets a lot of accolades. How do you sort of work with a youngster like that and help her understand how important her role is, even though, she may not be getting that, external kind of credit?
Yeah, it is it's the unpopular role on social media, and it's the popular role for coaches because it's a selfless act. And those that embrace it, like Bree, she's here talking to you all. Everybody on social media knows the impact that she has on our team. And does Bree want to score? She absolutely does want to score. I'm sure she does want to score at the rate that she scored in high school. But sometimes when you play with a collection of players that we have, and that they all chose to come here to play individually, but collectively, somebody loses out on, being highlighted in a way that they're normally highlighted. But it's communication. You have to actually tell everyone what their role is, and not once, not twice. You got to continue that, because we sat down with our players prior to coming to San Antonio, and we revisited with what our expectations are, and some of them, like you look at Olivia Thompson and Alyssa Westlake. Their role was a little bit different during the season than it was postseason. Like postseason, I said, we gotta, we lost Lily, so we have to get Littleton, Dusty Littleton. We have to get L.A. and we have to get, we call her little baby, Anaya Russell. We have to get them up to speed with getting them reps because we wanted to play a certain type of basketball. So you all may not even get any reps in practice because we had practice guys. So, that's going to be your role. And they embraced that role. I told E she had to be ready. Obviously, if we get any kind of foul trouble in the post, you have to be ready for that. But until then, you may have to just stand on the sideline and cheer. Olivia, I said, you may not get in. You may not get into practice. So when you're clear in communicating what we need from each individual, they may not like it, and I don't expect them to like it, but they got to respect it, and it's not left in the air. And it's not like, you get in a situation where if they're out on the floor and they aren't supposed to be out on the floor, they could take it a little bit easier when you say, hey, let Anaya get in for right now. So they could take it a little bit easier when you clear the air and you let them know what the roles that they need to play for us.